We do need minerals on a consistent basis. There's over 72 different types of minerals, and even trace minerals. I'm talking, minerals that we never even think about, or never even, knew existed, like platinum, gold, and trace amounts, all types of minerals, even vanadium, things of that nature. And with the food, how the food is grown, I personally believe they don't have the same nutrient content that they did 100 years ago, for example. And with today's high-paced, fast living, there's extra stress on us, and it puts more strain on your body's functions, chemical reactions. And so it's kind of like a car needs higher octane, higher gasoline, just to get through the day optimally and efficiently.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 52, Nicholai Jablokov, The Importance of Minerals and the Only Form of Minerals We Can Absorb. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power, so tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vidal Speaks podcast, and welcome to Vidal Speaks Wednesday. 2017, here we go. If you guys want to do something for me for the new year, please find a way to write a review or to get your friends to do it so we can reach more and more people this year, okay? I so look forward to another year of you guys joining me around my table to speak about all kinds of health issues. I have so enjoyed being your host and bringing you new ideas, groundbreaking treatments, and alternative options to heal yourself, but also just walking with you on your journey to wellness. Remember, success will come when you take small steps or you reach one goal at a time. So how many of you guys made some New Year's resolutions? Lloyd and I went for our hike this morning and it was packed, as it usually is early in the new year, because, so many make these New Year's resolutions to exercise more, to lose weight. Sadly, all that's going to disappear in 1 month and it'll just go back to its usual busy state because most can't keep up with their resolutions or they quit when they break it for the first time. I like that idea that Victoria said, which is to make one new habit each week. By the end of the year, imagine, you'll have 52 new habits. That's a pretty good accomplishment. No habit or goal is too small, so just commit to one and stick to it. Remember, the tortoise who went slow and steady won the race. And for most, this kind of approach to making changes is much more likely to succeed at becoming part of your lifestyle than trying to do it all or nothing. Ultimately, that's the only way to stick with something anyway, I believe. It won't last if it's just a diet or another fad that you'll try for a temporary fast fix to lose your weight, to fix your health, or whatever it is. It has to be a choice that supports the lifestyle you want to live or supports a commitment for something you deeply believe in. Then it becomes easy because your changes are supporting the greater good and they're making you feel empowered by giving something back. I always believe giving out brings the most reward and you get 100 times back what you gave out. It makes you feel good, and then it's no longer about a sacrifice or a diet. That's why I advocate to all of you to try a diet completely powered by plants. There are hundreds of doctors now that tell you it's the healthiest diet on the planet. And also many experts have now agreed that it's the single biggest thing you can do to save nature and help climate change, which ultimately is killing all of us anyway. So when you make a choice to eat plant-powered, then you're making one that is sustainable and you're helping more than just you. And that makes it easy to become a lifestyle and not a diet. make the cause more than just you attaining good health. And speaking of good health, today's show is going to be one all of you are so interested in. You know why I know that? Because the show Lloyd and I did on supplements has been one of the most popular ones. And I'm going to do more on specific supplements, but in today's show, I'm focusing on minerals, and more specifically, the best form of minerals to take so our body can absorb them. Getting minerals into our body is one huge key to good health. Many people swallow pills and they don't absorb anything. We used to say you are what you eat, but now the saying has become you're only what you absorb. And also there's more and more data pointing to the dangers of taking minerals like calcium in its inorganic form. And what I mean by inorganic means the form where it comes from rocks or shells. And even the medical world is now telling us that they believe calcium intake is causing hardening of the arteries because that calcium begins to collect in the walls of the arteries. That's because it's coming from the rock form. Today, you'll learn how to take your minerals. Minerals are truly a life food. Without them, we would all die of malnutrition. They're more important than most people realize. And I'm trying to get a doctor on this show that I learned from years ago. And even back then, he was preaching that taking the right form of minerals and getting them on a daily basis was the key to good health. When I get him on the show, we're going to discuss the importance of minerals. But today, I'm going to focus on the best delivery method for our minerals so our bodies are able to absorb what we take. My guest today is Nicholai Jablokov. Nicholai has a personal story that led him to start his company called Good State Health Solutions. Nicholai's story is extreme, but sometimes it's easier to get well and find healing when you have extreme symptoms because others that have lesser symptoms just mask them with drugs and they still feel bad, but they think maybe it's just aging. However, in both cases, one thing is for sure. If you don't have a cookie-cutter disease picture when you go to the doctor, then you'll fall between the cracks in being able to be helped. And it'll be only you that figures it all out. And that's out of sheer survival and distress from living in a state of feeling like death would be easier, yet no one understanding why you have the symptoms you do. Believe me, you guys, I know this state all too well because this is the one Lloyd has been in for 8 years, and it's been only my work and our work that I think has finally figured things out. We'll see as we begin a new protocol to heal his unknown horrible neuropathy, and I know many of you out there are in the same position. This is not a rare thing these days. It's actually more of the norm now. In Nicholai's case, he went from a successful, young, amazing football player with NFL aspirations and invitations to not even being able to put two thoughts together. It was as if he was losing his mind at that young age. It started with sleep issues, he says, leg cramps, and then when he landed in the ER in hands of the doctors, things did get better, but only for the short term. And in the long term, he realized he was becoming much worse. So he decided to learn everything he could about his bad state, and it was only because of his own efforts that he was able to heal himself. You'll hear about his story in this episode, but it's really interesting and pretty amazing. So if you want to read the whole thing, you should buy his ebook at goodstate.com. But anyway, before we get started, let me tell you a little bit more about Nicholai. Nicholai Jablokov is the president and CEO and co-founder of Good State, Inc. He's worked in major retail vitamin stores for years and helped thousands of customers with great success. Over time, he realized the energy and effort it takes to pick out a good product from a large selection, and that's why he started his company Good State, because the selection has already taken place. Good State makes it easier for the customer to be satisfied with a purchase because they're getting only the best. Just as some foods are unhealthy, so are some supplements. Being a former college athlete, trying to make it to the next level and not attaining that goal because of nutrient deficiencies, he truly understands the benefits of a good nutritional program. Nicholai wants to make one point perfectly clear. He says, I am neither a doctor nor a student obtaining a degree in the medical field as of the moment. However, for many years, I have read, researched, and applied a lot of information in this particular field. So much so that I even stump and baffle respected doctors and other medical personnel. This will often result in some of them asking me for advice. I've spent more than a decade in the healthcare field, including some years at the retail level. I've helped thousands of customers face-to-face and more still on the internet. It's been a great feeling knowing that I'm able to make a living by really changing the lives of many individuals for the better. I believe I'm a reputable source, for it wasn't for my due diligence in health, I would have been in a far worse place long ago. I prevailed to many people's surprise. My family, friends, and many others couldn't believe that my own health turned around, or what I like to say, my health rebounded. In my short book, I explain my story and the secret of how I was able to rebound from so many bad states. In the end, the idea is fairly simple. Give your body what it needs for a good state of health. This also means that what you give your body needs to be absorbable or in the right form. If your body can't absorb and utilize what it needs, then what good is it? Absorption and utilization was the hardest part for me to learn. However, once I learned this concept, it made my journey much more manageable. At the end of my book, I show you what nutrients and supplements I take every day that help keep me in a good state of health. To really find what my body needed took over 10 years of reading, trial and error, and research, and I am confident the information alone would be a good research tool for others. My goal is really to help open your eyes to look at health in a whole new light. Sometimes the hardest things in life have just the simplest answers. I could have released this short book much earlier, but I wanted to make sure that I got everything right. I've learned I'd rather be late and get it right than come out early and get it wrong. I really wanted to refine the techniques and explanations so I could make this book as efficient as possible. Charting these waters was no easy task, especially when you don't have a guide. The only thing that kept me going was believing these difficult questions had very simple answers. The information included in this book is purely informational, and I hope you at least keep an open mind to some critical facts. I have learned over the years that it's really up to the individuals themselves to take an active approach towards their health. For not many, if any, will make their number one priority day in and day out to make you better. I can only hope one day Good State, the company itself, can provide the level of support needed for a person in today's world. Okay, you guys ready to go meet Nicholai? Sit back, relax, pay attention because this is an important one, and let's go hear about the importance of taking ionic minerals. Here we go. Hi, Nicholai. Welcome to the Vidal Speaks podcast. I'm a big fan of taking magnesium, and I came to learn about you because of your company that sells ionic minerals. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about them. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Deborah. I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, especially on your podcast. That's great.
Good. And we've got a lot to talk about, I think, but the first place I like to start is with your personal story, because I want to know how you went from being a football player to getting into the health business.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I do get that a lot, and I was actually kind of forced into this area. As mentioned in the book, I was training for football, and even from high school, even got scouted by the NFL, and then made it to the supplemental combine, and I was being scouted by two teams with an invite to an NFL team. And all through the years of training, pulling cars and lifting hard and doing everything I needed to do, no matter what I did, my body could not replenish its nutrients, no matter how hard I worked. And it became a downward spiral, which I couldn't pull out until it was too late, or until I had to bail out, so to speak.
So how did you know that your body wasn't able to regain or retain its nutrients?
That's a good question as well, because I've always, throughout my college career and always being, scattered as well, I always took a bunch of vitamins and minerals, whether it be 30 or 40 different supplements at a time. Because when I was a kid, I was always healthy. Every day that, went by, I was never sick. I was always, getting up to take on the day. And it just wasn't right. It just didn't seem correct. After doing a lot of research and doing this for over a decade and then some because of this field, it just makes sense, common sense, that just to give your body what it needs,
Yeah. So back when you were training and everything, and you said your body wasn't like remaking your minerals or maybe even absorbing the minerals that you were taking.
Right.
Were you having a certain symptom picture that made you believe that something was missing?
After my college or my senior year of college playing football, that's when I hit the fan, so to speak, hit the wall. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. I couldn't comprehend space and time. It was a very difficult, very scary point in my life. And, I had to take a plethora of medications just to level myself out. But what's interesting is as I kept along this path, I just focused on minerals, more importantly, minerals that had a high absorption rate and that could penetrate the red blood cell. And that's the secret. If you could penetrate your red blood cell with the nutrients it needs, that it requires, well, then, we call that a good state of health.
Wow. Now, I know you wrote a book about your story. Can you tell us the name of this book? And then I want to ask you a question.
Sure, no problem. The book is called A Good State of Health. Subtitle is Give Your Body What It Needs for Life.
So it's available on your website and Amazon, and hence the name of your company, Good State, because
Yes.
That's very, very clever. Okay, so I want to go back a little. Why were you not able to speak? How scary is that? I mean, you really literally couldn't speak and you felt like you were losing your mind?
For the most part, yes. I mean, the point is, I knew what was happening around me, but I didn't understand why it was happening. Yes, it was very scary. And, when you put two and two together, whether the brain function and chemical functions, without the right nutrients, your body can create those chemical reactions that it needs to survive. And you can take the most healthiest person in the world. You take out all their magnesium. That healthy person will no longer be healthy very quickly. They can experience bad states very quickly. So, it all determines about what your body has, and the nutrients level. It's very important.
Yes, very. And I know from my own practice of 20 years how important magnesium is. And I, too, am a professional athlete. I played the LPGA Tour as a professional golfer for 11 years on the tour, but playing many years after that. And I know the importance for athletes, especially because you're just pushing your body so hard in training, that athletes are kind of the, prime example how fast things can go wrong because you're working your body so hard that when you're in a state of missing something, it shows up even faster than in someone that isn't training. Don't you think that?
Absolutely. And I did read your bio here, that is impressive being on the LPGA tour for 11 years. Congrats on that.
Oh, thanks.
And and being at that level, whether you're at a professional athlete or, someone who's studying for a test or someone just, going to work every day, these minerals, vitamins I believe are overrated, but the minerals, your body can't make like vitamins. Your body can make certain vitamins, but it can't make minerals. They're inorganic material and they're metals. So you have to acquire them from some source and they have to have a very high absorption rate. Otherwise, your body can't utilize it properly and it will just flow out of your system.
Well, that's one of the great things I wanted to talk to you about. And actually, just because I always tell my listeners, I want them to feel like they're sitting around the table with us and we're just having an intimate conversation, because it's really so many people are in this situation. And just having a practice for 20 years, I can tell you people are swallowing pills. But the question really is, how much of what they're taking are they really absorbing? We used to say you are what you eat, but truthfully, you are what you absorb, not what you eat, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Nicholai, one thing that's really interesting to me about this idea that you're saying about minerals, when I was much younger, There was a doctor, and I'm wondering if you came across him when you were sick or in your research. His name was Dr. Wallach. He was a vet, and then he became, I think, a naturopath and maybe even a medical doctor, but for sure a naturopath and a vet. Do you know who he is?
I may have heard the name before, but was it Joel?
Yeah, I think it's Joel. I think it's Joel Wallach.
Yes.
And do you remember he did a long time ago a tape that was called Dead Doctors Don't Lie, and you can YouTube it and find it. But anyway, he was a vet and he treated all his animals. They lived on a farm and they had raised livestock and things like this. And they made sure always that their animals had every single mineral. And he sold a drink when he became an adult and a vet that was liquid minerals because he touted how important, like what you're saying, is minerals. Even comparison to vitamins, he would say the same thing. And his talk was about Dead Doctors Don't Lie because he believes that everybody's disease is only a mineral deficiency. Doesn't matter what you have. And one thing that they noticed on their farm is the animals never got sick. It was the people. So that's how he came up with his theory about everyone needing to take minerals.
Yeah, I can't agree with the fact that everybody does need minerals. For what we can only say is, a bad state and a good state of health. We like to keep it very, very simple, and that's how we approach it. And that is true. We do need minerals on a consistent basis. There's over 72 different types of minerals, and even trace minerals. I'm talking, minerals that we never even think about or never even, knew existed, like platinum, gold, and trace amounts. All types of minerals, even vanadium, things of that nature. And with the food, how the food is grown, this is where, people and ideas differ, which is completely fine. But knowing from my personal experience and eating mounds of food and pasta for training for football, I personally believe they don't have the same nutrient content that they did 100 years ago, for example. And with today's high-paced, fast living, there's extra stress on us. There's, daily activities, and it puts more strain on your body's functions, chemical reactions. And so it's kind of like a car needs higher octane, higher gasoline just to get through the day optimally and efficiently.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to your story. So then what leads you from being in that state, kind of that brain state where you're not functioning too well, to discovering that it was minerals that you need? What got you there?
Well, as soon as I hit the wall at the end of my senior year, which is literally the last game of my college senior football game, within 1 week, I had to go to the hospital, and that's where everything was happening. And it was, like I said, it was a very scary time. But what I noticed was when I ate food, I felt better. Well, this is natural. But the thing is, it came to the point where I needed to figure out at the root level what was going on. So the more food I ate, I felt better, obviously. But I needed to be more precise. I needed to be more surgical. What exactly was in the food that made me feel in a good state of health? And I figured out it's simple. It makes sense. It just give your body what it needs and make sure it's absorbable. And it just escalated from there. It took 2 or 3 years to really understand what these ionic minerals were. You ask somebody today, they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Now, did you start with regular minerals when you started on your journey of getting better?
Oh, yeah. Well, during my training, I would always take your typical multivitamin mineral that you see on your store shelf at any type of grocery store or your vitamin store. But I knew that I was taking during the I like to call it rebounding. During that phase, I know I needed something more. And as the research progressed, the best way I could explain it is just like computer chips and cell phones are getting smaller, so are the supplements.
That's so true, because now it's nanomolecule medicine, isn't it?
Yes. And well, we can't really, as a supplement, we really can't say medicine, but what it is, it's just a supplement. It's a high absorbing product. We like to have people speak for themselves. And there's a lot of stories out there, even for me, for myself, taking these ionic minerals. Personally, for me, I feel like every morning now, almost every morning, I go to the gym, I go jogging, I bring the dog out, and then I still have that competitive nature in me. And I was always a good baseball player back in the day, so I'm starting up again in terms of just staying fit, going to clinics, pitching clinics, and who knows? I'm just going to just continue on this ride.
Cool. Good. That's great. Well, you said earlier about the key really is about minerals entering into the red blood cell. Can you explain why that's so important?
Yes, because there has been studies where, you take minerals and they increase your plasma levels, which is basically just your blood serum, which is great. However, the molecules or the minerals are still so very big that they can't penetrate the red blood cell. And that's where all the action happens. That's your mitochondria in your red blood cell. It has to create the chemical reactions, for red blood cells to communicate with each other. It's, the synapses, it gets more in depth because the red blood cell is 10,000 nanometers across, average, roughly. And you got these minerals, which we even test with lasers. These minerals exceed over 50,000 nanometers or 80,000 nanometers. And you put two and two together, it can't work. It doesn't make sense. So, we test our ionic minerals. They're underneath 1 nanometers in size, underneath 3 nanometers in size. And that's the type of level where you need to be at. We're a little bit different because we add fulvic acid to the solution, which is actually organic plant material found in soil, and it helps nutrient uptake. So
right.
You have best
fulvic acid is fantastic. I love fulvic acid.
Yes, so you understand. So you put two and two together, all of a sudden you have, I believe, an incredible product.
So you put the fulvic acid in all of the ionic minerals, or only some of them, or all?
Most of our ionic minerals has fulvic acid. There are still some products that do not. They're just in a smaller container, more concentrated. But we do plan to add that fulvic acid to all the products. And we're starting to come out with more glass products. Zinc, we got glass, magnesium, selenium, things like that.
Yeah, so interesting because fulvic acid, for the listeners that might not know what it is, it's kind of like thousands of years of eroded plant material that goes into the ground that they take from the ground, and they use all these like decayed plants. So it's like super healthy because it's basically like plant minerals and plant substances from the earth. So it's super healthy for you. And I learned from one doctor that they said fulvic acid is something that can deliver nutrients, but also bring out toxins. And there's almost no other subject like that. So that's really cool about fulvic acid.
We do sell to different accounts, whether it be doctors or physicians, and they do their own independent testing, and they report back to us that whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah, that's always a good sign from a doctor, isn't it?
So I said, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
So can you tell us what exactly is an ionic mineral?
Sure. Ionic mineral is nothing more than just ions. I mean, they're very, very small. And the lasers we use can't even detect lower than 1 nanometers in size. But they're just basically subatomic particles or ions at the molecular level. You cannot go any smaller. And that is the most efficient way for your body to receive something, so that you're basically using a subatomic ions to give your body what it needs to do what it needs to do. Because our bodies, they're very compatible. They're very strong in terms of they've been doing this for a while, and they know what to do. You just got to give it what it needs and with a high absorption rate, and that's all it wants.
Yeah, the body's a very intelligent mechanism, and it just needs the raw materials,
Exactly.
And usually it can heal. And so when you take this subatomic particle, well, maybe let's go back a little. How do you make an ionic mineral? Is it done in a distillation process? How do they extract out these nanomolecules? Do they start with the calcium as a rock, and then they do something to it and it becomes these nanomolecules?
That's actually a great question, and we are developing a video to help explain a little bit more. But what happens is, for example, magnesium. We take a block of magnesium, 99.9999% magnesium, and people that are much smarter than me would actually submerge this block of magnesium under ultra pure water in an oxygenless environment. And it's very controlled, and it's called an ionization process. And we have pictures, and basically they run electricity through this block of magnesium, so much electricity to it actually turns into plasma, about anywhere from 10 to 15,000 volts, depending on the mineral. And the ions dissipate in the solution, and then citric acid and sorbic acid, a natural non-GMO product we need to add to help stabilize the positive and negative ions. And that's the other thing which people may not understand. You have to balance the positive and negative ions in the solution, because if you don't, it can actually experience a term called fallout, and that's when the ions start colliding with each other and start building compounds. And when you start doing that, then you're just a regular typical mineral product on the store shelf. It doesn't have that high absorption rate anymore.
So it sounds like it's extremely important and controlled, and not something that people can just make at home. You have to make sure you get a good product that's made correctly.
Yeah, you don't want to develop this inside your house. I do not recommend it. We have scientists, physicians that's all patented information on how this process is made, and people make it differently. And our process seems to be coming out in front, knock on wood, and it really is getting traction. And, we sell, a good amount with a lot of good reviews. Like I said, the product speaks for itself, and the reviews they're just endless. It's endless.
Well, I came to you guys because I've used your product for a while, and I've used a lot of magnesiums, and I've used ionic magnesium of other companies. So I can attest to that. And I never recommend to any of my listeners something that I don't use myself or that I don't really believe in. So I know your product is good, and you guys work hard to kind of listen to feedback, because I'm one of the ones, I think you probably had another person, but you used to make only ionic minerals in liquid, and then you came out with a capsule form. And I was so happy about that, because the liquid form is really difficult because it tastes so bad to me. Yes. And I think a lot of other people wrote that in their review. They don't like the taste. It's hard to hide. And so then when you came out with the capsule form of it, I was so excited, and I was like, all right, great. But if you want to take 400 milligrams, that's like 4 capsules, and that little bottle goes really fast. So I remember saying to Steve, man, you guys need to make a big bottle of like 250. This thing's a joke. And he's like, okay, we'll get right on that. Like a month later, he emails me to tell me that they have a big bottle now. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. They listen to their customers. That's great. So I appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome. And the goal is to create a lot of the capsules with fulvic acid. And the whole line, we're trying to transfer the liquid to a dry capsule format. And we spray dry it, and it actually forms like a crystal-like compound, ionic mineral. So it's very unique. It's a great direction we're headed in. I do know a lot of people, when they try it, they're not sorry.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because it doesn't matter what brand you buy, ionic magnesium, it's just difficult to taste. But tell me a little bit more about the dry form. Is it just as powerful? Is it a problem for someone who maybe has stomach issues that don't absorb? And I just want to know a little bit more how it gets from ionic to that dry form.
Sure, no problem. So the process is all the same. We still make a liquid. And what I didn't mention is, you could always add stevia to the liquid form. What we're starting to do is, as just a suggestion, you can actually make like a gallon. You can mix your minerals in up to, which is 120 ounces. And then basically you can take 8 ounces a day, so that it'll be easier to take for 16 days. Because opening up all those bottles and we do provide hair analyses so that we can actually suggest custom formulations. So your body may need more chromium and less copper, or more magnesium but less calcium. We can just guide to suggest how to make these gallon jugs, so it'll be much easier in the long haul.
Yeah, that's great. Well, can I just ask you, what lab do you use for your hair analysis? Because I studied hair analysis for 2 years to learn, and used a lab that was called ARL.
ARL, that's correct. And we actually do use different companies as well now. We do actually use one company called Trace Minerals.
Is that for the hair analysis test?
Yeah, Trace Elements, we do use them. We do use another lab, and we're actually starting to look into some of the hair analysis equipment ourselves just to help provide a reduced cost, because we understand it is expensive. At $99, I know it shows incredible information. With a professional consultation, it's $150, but if we can drive some of the costs down, even $40 or $50, just to make anybody be able to afford it, which is, it's nice to go to work every day and do what you need to do, but also help people at the same time. It's just it's a little added benefit.
Yeah, and the thing about hair tests is you want to be able to do a lot of repetitions because you want to see what you're taking and how it's changing.
Exactly.
So what I learned in the hair test training that I did, it's not just one test. One test is kind of like a snapshot of where you are today. And the next test you do, maybe it's 6 months later after taking a bunch of different products or changing your diet, you may look like you're more toxic, let's say, in mercury, but actually that's what's been pushed out into your hair. So it's actually a sign that you're getting better. So it's really an art form to learn to interpret hair analysis. And it's not a static thing. It's kind of a motion, looking at the motion of how you're going in the direction you're going. So that's cool. I noticed that the other night when I was on your site that you offered a hair analysis test. I didn't know that before, but that's really good to know because ARL, the lab that I liked a lot and that I did my training understanding their test. Mm-hmm. The thing that I don't like about it is because they too would prescribe on your results. And that's what sold me because they thought this is fantastic. I can have my patients do it. The lab can put together what they need, but it's all rock minerals. And at first I said, okay, let's just try it. There's obviously something to this. A lot of people got better. So I tried it. I gave it a good try, probably for a few years, but it was so many pills people were swallowing and it was all rock minerals. And I honestly had so many people that really weren't getting better. And if they were to get better, they did it religiously for 2 years. One of them was my partner, Lloyd. He took it religiously and he honestly didn't get any better, not one improvement. And he had horrible stomach where he didn't absorb stuff. So I just said to him, he couldn't even swallow all those things. He tried, but he would always have problems. So in the end, I said, we're just going to juice and I'm going to give you liquid nutrition. So we just started doing juicing and smoothies, but mostly juicing just to give him the vitamins and minerals in food. And finally, his hair analysis results started changing for the better after all we did was really juicing and we stopped all the supplements. It's time to take a little break. Grab your water or fill your cup with a lovely hot drink. Our friend Reese gave us this great cacao powder and fresh ginger powder, and I add it to hot water with a little splash of homemade cashew milk, and I'm sipping on that right now as I'm recording this show today. So thank you, Reese. It's awesome. You guys should give it a try. It's a yummy combo, and when it's cold out, it's just so nice and warming. Also, don't forget to pass the show on to your friends. Sometimes you have to help them with their iPhone to subscribe because many don't know how. So pass it on to 2 or 3 people if you can this week. And lastly, thanks again for all of you that are using that Amazon banner at vidalspeaks.com. Because if you're already going to buy from Amazon, then why not support the show and use the banner from my website, right? And I know that you know how much I appreciate that, so thank you. Okay, now back to the show. So now that you guys offer this and you can help put together a program for a patient based on their own unique needs of minerals, that's great because now you're going to prescribe ionic minerals. And how different is that?
Yeah, we can only suggest based on mineral deficiencies. That is an interesting thing because we like to look at everything that's currently out there and provide the best and high absorption.
For sure. So, that's what it's all about. If you don't absorb it, you're wasting money.
Exactly. So with the hair analysis, we do have a nurse practitioner, a pharmacist, a physician assistant on staff. We also have a health coach, and we're looking for a nutritionist currently. So we're developing a team here to be able to provide the support needed. With the hair analysis we have in place at the price that we have it at, we're very confident. And at the same time, we'll help you along the way. This is what we do. And
that's so good. That's really great. You guys are getting into that because I'm a homeopath, and homeopathy is individualized. You don't give one remedy to every person that has a sinus infection. You got to listen to the symptoms. You got to look at their family history, and they all need something different. This is the future of medicine. It's going to be based on our genes, based on our hair analysis, based on our blood work. This is the only way we're going to heal anymore. To just randomly take some drug because you have a symptom, it's not working now. It's certainly not going to work in the future. So it's really cool you guys are getting into this. It's definitely the right time.
And that's what, in the next 10 to 15 years, is going to be pretty exciting in the health field. Everything we ever know, it eventually will change. You just have to give the body what it needs. And to fall back on the dry material, we actually use enteric-coated capsules to help bypass the stomach acid. And what it does, it opens up your intestinal tract. And when the process is all the same as mentioned, it's liquid, we dehydrate it, we make capsules. Once it hits liquid again, it almost instantaneously turns back to a liquid. So it is very much at that same state or same very high absorption, and it's much easier for the person to take it. It's just another option that we're providing, and we're listening to everybody, and we're just trying to look at what is the best thing to do, for the body and for the customers as well.
That's cool. So you take this liquid. It's kind of like when you see dehydrated cane juice. They dehydrate it and they make it into these little crystals, and that becomes a sugar that you can use. So you're taking the ionic mineral solution, dehydrating it. It becomes like little crystals that you can put in capsules. But the great thing about that is the capsules don't get eroded by the stomach. And so then when it goes through to where it needs to go, it becomes liquid again. So that's very cool.
And you know what? What's interesting is everybody's body, it's different. It's the state of health. What's your intestinal tract like? Is it clogged, or the pores clogged with waste? So, it's always good to take psyllium seed husk just to clean the intestines out. And then when you take the ionic minerals, it has a cleaner pathway. So you're prepping the body to have nice, clean intestinal tract to help absorb it. And we're even coming out with oil, so you can use it topically on the skin. So
yeah, that's a really big thing for some years now. I mean, I've used magnesium oil, especially with patients that had bad stomachs, because I wasn't giving ionic magnesium at the time, and regular magnesium. So I would just, instead of ionic magnesium, I didn't want to do rock form magnesium. Sure. So I would always do magnesium oil, and I had them do it in foot baths and in their baths if they took baths. And if it was a man, I just had them do it in foot baths. And that's amazing. And I was really happy to hear you guys are getting into the oils. And I've also asked if you guys would get into magnesium salts like flakes or Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulf. And that would be great too.
Yes, and we're actually toying with that idea at the moment, and we're looking in different ways how we provide that. And we found out not just one way is the best way. So you can take a combination of liquid, capsules, topically, with the oils and the flakes. Even we're eventually, in the direction that we're headed, eventually we want to be able to provide even bottled water with these ionic minerals, so that you can just get cases of water as a good foundation, and then eventually do want to be more in the custom realm. But
now let me tell you, I would like to tell you something about that water thing. I just want to offer a little bit of my expertise on this. I've spent a lot of research on water. Bottled water, just bottled water, or what people want to call just spring water, it has like the rock minerals in, which is why many health people don't advocate it, but many more people advocate it and will tell you distilled water is bad. And I did a podcast with Dr. Clements. He's the CEO of the Hippocrates Institute, and he's a huge advocate of distilled water for a couple reasons. Because you remove everything and you're left with pure water. But then the argument, some people say it'll leach all the minerals out of your body. It's acidic, and that's okay. Whatever the argument is to it, I've studied this a lot, and I'm never saying I'm right or I'm wrong, but I say I've decided I'm comfortable trouble only with drinking distilled water because there's too many small nanomolecules of plastic and poisons that are going into our streams and our rain, and we can't drink bottled water. So when you told me you're getting into the water thing, I thought, wow, because the only water on the market right now that is distilled and has added minerals in there, and I believe they're ionic, is smart water. And so that's the only water I will buy when I'm out because of that reason. And now they've been bought by Pepsi, which doesn't make me feel as good about buying. So you guys need to get in the business and have some competition for them, because it needs to be distilled and with ionic minerals. And then, man, you will have a health product that you only see smart water. I've gone in every store, looked at every bottle. There is not one other product with distilled with added ionic minerals. So I would highly recommend you guys look into that, because that seems like a big market.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And that's why there is a process with a double reverse osmosis water. It's just, when I talk to my guys, they tell me it's cleaner than distilled water. So what you have is a very, very clean base. And then we start adding ionic minerals. Then we start adding some B vitamins. Now you have an incredible product, and that's what we're focusing on. Extremely pure water, and then we start adding the right nutrients back into the water. Yeah. So
look into it, because when I was talking to Brian Clements, who gives a lot of lectures on waters, he was saying sometimes even the $100,000 filters that double reverse do everything, he felt like there's still things from the rain that are in vapor form. But still, hey, what you're doing is a great thing. It's better than this darn spring water that everybody's touting it with all this rock minerals in there. And so I'm really happy you're getting into that, because there really is nobody doing that. And we need water with ionic minerals in it. I think that's really important. So let me ask you something about that. Can you tell us, maybe just in a simple form, so the ionic mineral is this kind of nanomolecule subatomic versus what we are all calling organic form of a mineral. And I don't mean organic like organic food, meaning that it's organic from the earth in the form of a rock. So can you tell us, how does our body react to the rock kind of mineral, not the ionic mineral?
When you're talking about delivery methods, supplements like oxide or even carbonate, for example, they don't have a very good absorption rate. It's a bulky binder. Magnesium, for example, has to be transported using some kind of transportation, some kind of bus or cars, if you will. Oxide is just very bulky. So we use H2O, which is a good transporter and works very well. To stabilize, like I said before, we have to use citric acid to help stabilize the positive and negative ions. And your body doesn't work very well with these bulky minerals. It's only no wonder why, health always seems to be such a big mystery.
For sure. And there's so many people, really, if you think about it, we're adding minerals to so many packaged foods. Our kids are consuming nothing but packaged foods, and they're all mineral fortified, and they're still sick. So in my experience, people taking these kind of supplements like calcium for the longest time, calcium, magnesium. Oh, don't ever take magnesium alone. It always needs to be 2-to-1 ratio. This is how we all learn nutrition when we study nutrition. But in the end, you just see people who've been taking calcium for 25 years, and they're osteoporosis. They have joint pains, arthritis. They have so many things. And you think, well, what's going on? Maybe they're not absorbing their calcium, but your body can't absorb those rock minerals. And that's what I try to tell the listeners, that it just deposits it. Think of your tea kettle. If you use tap water that has high calcium in it, and you just use your tea kettle in 2 months, you'll have a lining of calcium on your tea kettle. Well, that's what's happening to our arteries. And finally, the medical society and the AMA are now finally coming out and saying it's not that healthy to take calcium now. Why? Well, because it's lining our arteries, it's depositing. And this is why I want our listeners to know that I'm a huge believer in only taking ionic minerals. And that's why I drink distilled water, and I add the minerals back to my distilled water instead of taking rock minerals that are just going to fill my body and my joint up with all kinds of calcium and other things that our body doesn't absorb.
like calcium oxide or calcium citrate or the carbonate version, it just rocks, and it's either your body's excreting it naturally, or in some cases, even like colloidal minerals, they're still very big and they can actually just build up in the small capillaries in your veins. So in some regards, some people may even suggest, is it even doing anything good, or is it further into another bad state? So that's why, like you said it right. Pure water, distilled, or some very big machinery for double reverse osmosis water with your ionic minerals, and all of a sudden you have a much better platform to work from for health.
Yeah, so the danger in taking the rock minerals is that they don't absorb and they deposit, which not only is not working and you're wasting money, but it's completely unhealthy because it's lining your arteries and causing problems. But even in say like in some forms of colloidal products like colloidal silver, which I use and have used for many years, it's still really, like you said, and that's what's so great about your product. It's a combination of being ionic, but it needs to be like the smallest nanoparticle known, because then it like easily gets into the cell and the cell can't not accept it. It just goes in there. So it's a combination about ionic and a really small nanoparticle. Do I have it right?
Yes, and that's correct. And you can measure these ions in picometers. And and this is always the biggest thing I always get, is your ionic minerals pico, nano, or ionic? And it's important to note all three of those units of measurements. So yes, they can be measured in picometers, just like you can measure a car in inches or feet, picos or nanometers, etc. So yes, you can measure it in picometers.
I've used other products that are like nanoparticle, and homeopathy is energy medicine, so it has an idea about this kind of nanomedicine. So I understand this completely, and it's why I wanted to do the podcast with you today, because I really want listeners to know on a deeper level, not just to believe me and say, no, don't take that, take ionic, or no, don't drink this, drink distilled. But I really want them to understand why, because ultimately we have to make our own choices, and we also have to live and die by our own choices. So it pays to be educated, and I try to bring on the experts so we all can learn, and I get to ask a lot of questions. And as you can see, I always have a lot of questions. So usually my listeners get all the answers because I just keep asking, and that's what makes my show popular. So I'm really excited about it. I want to know if you guys make a multi-mineral formula.
That's a good question. We do have some inventory left. It seems like with more regulation coming down, we have to make this product in such a way that, yes, we are, and it's taking time. So it's we're reformulating. It's taking a little more time, but yes, eventually we were coming out with a multiple ionic mineral product, and you'll see that in the coming months. So you can watch out for that as well.
Okay, cool. And how many minerals will be in there? Will it be all minerals like trace minerals too, or your main multi-minerals?
That's a good question, because we're starting to dehydrate a lot of these liquid to this powder form. As we continue to dehydrate the liquid format, we might be coming out with a dehydrated multi-ionic mineral. That's one direction. And in that same direction, we are going to have the liquid version, which will have at least anywhere from 8 different ionic minerals and higher, up to 15 and maybe even 20. But the problem is shipping costs, because shipping so much liquid can get expensive rapidly. And we have to find a good balance to get it out to the customer as well. But yes, we are actively working on both angles, the dry side and the liquid side. And that's why I say in the meantime, it may be best to have a gallon and to mix it based on what your body needs, which would be a lot more accurate, which would be a lot more beneficial until we can come out with a good multiple ionic mineral.
Right. Well, I would say since you are going to be or are offering a hair test analysis and then a customized formula for what your body needs, that would be the first choice that anybody should take. But if someone either can't afford to do the test and to do that, multi or custom formula, then having a general combo mineral formula would be second best.
Right. And that's right. We do have ionic woman and ionic man currently. And like I said, it is being reformulated. It has trace minerals. It has the macro minerals. It has like magnesium, it has calcium, it has potassium, but we're trying to increase the levels to make it basically a one-stop shop. And that's what we're trying to do. Focus on a product where you get all your liquid ionic minerals at a high absorption rate. Take that as your base, and you can just go on throughout your day, not even worry about health. And that's what everyone's trying to do, and it seems so elusive sometimes.
Cool. So what's your most popular product?
It would have to be the liquid ionic magnesium.
Yeah, that's so necessary. It's amazing. I mean, just across the board, you can pretty much just say everyone is depleted of magnesium. And if you ever read the book, The Miracle of Magnesium, or any of those books, every page you're going, wow, that's me. Wow, I have that. Wow, that's me. Wow, that's me. It's amazing. Magnesium is so important. It's really, that doesn't surprise me. And what other minerals that you sell are important? I mean, all minerals are important, but maybe what's popular and what are the things particularly that maybe helped you get well that you think a lot of people may be low in?
Oh, that's a good question, because we do provide a whole different array. But for me, with my deficiencies, why I was always in a bad state where, life around me was just crumbling. I mean, to the point where, a lot of people, gave up on me, and whether it be family members or even the church or whatever, they didn't think I was going to come back. But, we provide, copper, chromium, calcium, boron, potassium. But specifically for me, magnesium was a big thing because it helped me relax, helped me go to sleep. Potassium was a very big thing. I didn't even realize it till I got my hair analysis, but the phosphorus it's very important because it helps with the ATP process, which basically generates 90% of your body's energy. And I didn't have enough phosphorus, and with a combination of enough magnesium, potassium, and then molybdenum. No one even heard of molybdenum. That was a big
molybdenum, yeah.
So people don't even know about these minerals. But the thing is, they're so important, and they play such a big part in life, in the way your body.
Yeah, and did you take every one of these, or did you find out through a hair test and then take them?
You know what? When I first started, it was very rough. I was using myself as a guinea pig and just figuring out what made me feel better. But the hair analysis, like I said, I keep driving at it because it took me years to even believe it myself. Like, yes, the hair analysis did show at least a good starting point. And that's what people can say this, that, and the other, but at least it's a good starting point and get you in a good direction. Something to look towards. And that's why I'm a big believer in it. We could always suggest based on how someone's feeling or their current bad state, but the hair analysis, it's black and white. It shows you graphs. It shows you numbers.
For sure. It's interesting because Lloyd, my partner, a lot of the listeners know he has this undiagnosed, it's diagnosed, but they don't know what it's from, but he has this horrible neuropathy in his feet, like extremely painful neuropathy. And so for 8 years, I've been working on this, doing all kinds of natural tests and remedies and trying everything without much success. But then I did this genetic test, and from his genes, we can understand maybe what's going wrong. But in the hair test, he was always low in phosphorus. And I recently put him on the homeopathic remedy phosphorus. And it's such an important thing. And then I have this lady who's helping me with his case, with this genetic, kind of looking at his genes and prescribing certain supplements for him. And one of the things that has come out in the test that she's had him do is that his ATP energy of his cell is really, really low. His potassium was like 0. He takes potassium every single day. It's 0 almost. His cell isn't making the ATP. So that was one of the things I'm going to get on your site in order for him is the ionic potassium, because I think that just will enter the cell better and he'll do better with it. And maybe now that you mentioned you guys have phosphorus, that's a good idea too, because that does have a function for the ATP of the cell.
Yeah, that is very important for ATP production and energy. And, it's interesting to note, too, during my training and trying out for the NFL and all this, I did multiple sleep studies. I went to the doctors continuously, and they do blood tests. And what's interesting is what I found out was, they test your blood for potassium, which is great. But what I found out was your body is smart enough to know that your organs will leach out the potassium into your blood to make sure it's as balanced as possible. So by the time your potassium gets really low, and I'm talking really low, some range around maybe even 5%, that's when the blood tests show, you're low in potassium. But by that time, it's already too late. It's so deficient.
Yeah.
So
right, because what I always try to teach people is that your blood gets first dibs. So your blood work always can look normal. And when it doesn't, then something's really wrong, because your blood pulls the calcium, pulls the potassium, pulls the phosphorus. It needs it in your blood first. That's why your hair will show nothing, because it's taking it all to get the blood to work right. Yeah. But then there's nothing left for anything else. So that's so true. And potassium, what I found when people were in adrenal fatigue, which most athletes are, most sick people are, most cancer patients are, people under chronic stress for a long time, adrenal fatigue is a huge problem. And in my hair testing I did with clients, they were always low in potassium when they had adrenal fatigue and chronic stress and chronic health problems. So that's a big one, that's for sure.
And it's interesting you mentioned that bad state, because, credit card debt is one thing, but when a person's talking at a personal level, when you're adrenal fatigued, it's difficult to go to work. It's difficult to get up in the day. It's difficult to do anything. It's worse than credit card debt, because now you can't even go to work to pay off what you need to do to survive. It's a downward spiral, which, I don't wish on anybody, because I've been there, and it's very, very scary.
And these people, they fall through the cracks in society because they go to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, and the doctor just tells them, we don't know what you have. Gosh, I can tell you so many people like this. And I interviewed Dr. Cutler with all these people that are mercury toxic, and most of these are like that. They've spent their $100,000 seeing doctors. They're so sick, they can't take care of their kids. They can't get out of bed. They had lost their jobs. They lost all their money. There's millions of people out there like this. It's really sad. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing with my show, because just getting people educated about how they can come back. This isn't like the traditional podcast to talk to you about going to your doctor and asking for a drug or to juice. It's to learn that even if you have some mystery illness, that there might be one episode of something that I say that can help these people, because I've had a lot of patients like this. It's kind of my specialty, is just being the investigator to figure out what's wrong with people. So I think mineral deficiency is a big one, Nicholai, and I think you're on a really great path for the future, because like I said, nanomedicine is where it's all going to be at, and you've got nanominerals. So that's something the body can absorb, and people will see a difference. So I just want to say thanks for all the work that you're doing to promote such a good product and to put it out there to the world, and to keep staying on top with all the research and adding more great things. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Deborah. I appreciate that. And, I always think about how many dreams have been shattered, or, you couldn't, get that good mark on your test just because you weren't feeling good for whatever reason. And, I started to do this regimen, and before you know, like I said, I'm going to the gym. I'm jogging, for miles, and I'm getting back into it. So, you can take back your life.
Yeah, there's hope. There's hope. You can get back your life. And, even I left the tour sick and with a bad back, but I was sick because they're full of pesticides, and I was so toxic and sick from all the pesticides, I couldn't function at my best. If I could go back and play today with how I feel, I'm sure it would be different, but that's not my role. My role is to help people, and I accept that, and I love what I do. And I honestly feel like people just need to have hope that they too can heal and they can get their life back, because you can.
Yes. It is possible. It is possible. With
And
this
you're
thing,
proof of that.
well, you know what? As long as I keep going to the gym and keep doing my workouts again, I'm only 33 years old, so you never know. I'm not saying I'm going 100% going back in, but I'm not saying I'm not. So I'm going to take it day by day and see how it goes.
Yeah. That's always the best way to go, day by day, because you can't make the outcome. You can only walk the path.
Exactly.
Well, good luck with that. And thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. And I really appreciate it. And I look forward to taking plenty more of my ionic minerals. So thank you.
All right, Deborah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I hope all the best.
I can so relate to Nicholai's story, and I'm sure many of you out there can too. Today, more and more people have these mystery illnesses. They say America is one of the best countries for diagnostic testing, but really, in my experience, we're getting less able to diagnose people's illness and explain why they have these symptoms. Why is that? Think about it. Technology is advancing, yet each year more and more people have mystery symptoms and illnesses that they're just told it's in their mind. And then what do they get? An antidepressant because it's all in their head. I always believe in the patient. If my patients tell me something's not right, then no matter what their tests say, they're usually right. There is something not right. We need to listen to the patient. Sometimes the tests don't show what's going on. Doctors only do x-rays and blood tests, basic blood tests and physical exams. They do stress tests, which sadly kill some people in the process. But anyway, these tests are basic tests. And many times your symptoms are not explainable from these tests, so they don't seem to help you. But there's so many factors, and health and disease is a very complex issue. It's not just the cookie cutter medicine that we're making it out to be. And by that, I mean like cookbook therapy. If you have MS, then you'll get these 3 drugs. If you have high blood pressure, you'll get these 5 drugs. And Alzheimer's, these 4 drugs. But what happened to doctors being able to help you heal? The age of medicine is gone. Many doctors go into medicine because they really want to help people, but they end up so frustrated because they just realize they're writing prescriptions all day long and doing no real healing. So I don't really blame the doctors. It's their education. Look how many, out of their frustration, went on to practice medicine that does heal their patients. Famous doctors like Neil Barnard, Dr. Clapper, Dr. John McDougall, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and many more. Sadly, they all say they spent all their time in medical school without learning anything about nutrition, herbs, homeopathy, or any legitimate modality that could enhance their practice. That's why I believe that the future of medicine will be in integrative practices. Why not use natural methods first and save the drug therapy or surgery for when all else fails or in emergencies? We all know that the answer is that the pharmaceutical companies need you to stay sick so they can get their annuity from you needing their drugs. They don't want you to get well, and they have power now over the curriculum in medical schools, so doctors no longer know how to heal anything. It's the curriculum that's killing our medical system. Thankfully, though, many young doctors are becoming osteopaths because they're interested in more natural methods. My nephew Evan's in his first year of osteopathic medical school, and I know he'll truly be a different kind of doctor. So keep up the good work, Evan, because I know many out there are going to need you. It's not uncommon now that medical students are demanding classes on alternative medicine. I was asked to lecture at USC because the students themselves demanded to have a class that exposes them to alternative methods. For a few years, I went there to lecture to them on homeopathy, and it made me so happy to know that the future doctors are interested in natural methods, or at least open to it, because I believe medicine is losing ground from the popularity that it once had. With internet now, you can read about all the dangers of the treatments of drugs that your doctors are recommending, and many patients want to try the natural method first. So it's great that young medical students have a desire to at least expose themselves to these other medicines and modalities that have been in other cultures for hundreds of years. Sorry, I think I got a little distracted. It reminds me of a homeopathic author, Margaret Tyler. She'll start talking about a remedy and then she goes on to a rant. And like 2 pages later, she says, and back to arnica. And she is my favorite author, so maybe I'm taking after her. But anyway, back to health and disease. As Nicholai said, he figured out that most diseases are from a lack of something. And with minerals, that's so true. Minerals are so important to life that many experts would say that most diseases are from a lack of minerals. We have life minerals and trace minerals. There's lots of minerals. I think there's over 70, maybe there's even more than that, but they're all very important. But now after today, one thing that you've learned is that you can take a mineral and still not absorb it, so you still may have a mineral deficiency even if you're taking the mineral. So modern science is showing us now that medicine that's in nanoparticles is much more powerful because it's a form that the cell can absorb. That's the basis of homeopathy. So I know the truth behind that idea that less is more. Ionic minerals, in my opinion, are the most absorbable form. And when you hear Nicholai explain how they make their minerals, then you too can really understand why it's better than a form of a mineral that comes from a rock that just builds up in your joints, organs, and vessels. Also, health treatments should not be the same for all of us. They should be individualized, even when it comes to taking minerals. And I love that when Nicholai was talking about how Good State offers now hair testing, because that way it allows them to put together a custom formula for your results. Now that makes sense. Medicine according to the individual needs. So if you're interested in checking out their minerals or trying some of them, take a little stroll over to vidalspeaks.com, and at the bottom of my products page, click on the link to Good State, and there you can take a browse and look at all their products because it'll take you right to their website. I highly suggest you try their ionic magnesium pills first. The liquid doesn't taste so well, so I use their pill form. It's fantastic. And most people are so low in magnesium that would be a good start if you want to try one thing. You save when you order from that link on my products page, and then they give me a little commission in return, so it's a win-win. And these are products, you guys, that I believe in and I take myself. Otherwise, I would never be an affiliate or tell you about them. Okay, I think that's it for today. You guys must know what time it is, right? It's time to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the show today, my podcast family. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet because plants are full of minerals and then they can be absorbed. Homeopathy and detoxing, of course. Peace, be healthy, be free, live life.